People, it is time. Welcome to Beard of Darkness Book Reviews. Man, I have been looking ever since I've seen this guy's first video. I've just been, I think I hit him up the same day. I was like, look, will you come to chat with me? Brian Bell of BellTube. How are you tonight, man?
I am doing amazing, Mr. Beard of Darkness. I am so happy to be here. I've watched so many of your shows. The ones that I don't see live, I go back and I watch them on replay. You're one of my favorite casters online, so happy to be here.
I'm very thankful for that. And he's not lying either, because he leaves the most genuine comments, whether it's live or after. And that just plays in really to why I clicked subscribe so fast to your channel, man. Something I saw in you was he's a likable guy. He's an inventor, so he's interesting, and he knows his books. He's been reading for a while, something that I haven't been doing. I can learn from him. That's what I'm doing here. So, man, I'm just so glad that we kind of made friends and that you're here, man.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
So what was it that kind of guided you into the YouTube realm?
It was really unexpected. It was not like this long-term plan that I had to come online at all. I was very happy doing my life. And then, like a lot of people, the pandemic came and my life got totally upended. And I got back into reading books. And I started, when I was reading them, I started thinking about when I would finish them, I wonder what anybody else ever thought about this book. I wonder if there's any reviews on YouTube or anything like that, because it never occurred to me to look up book reviews. And so I did. I was reading the Wheel of Time and I was looking and, what did anybody think of The Eye of the World? And Mike's book reviews pops up and I became addicted to his channel because really in the pandemic, nobody was making any content in terms of like Hollywood or movies or anything like that. It was all really independent people in their homes providing entertainment. And I got very addicted to watching Mike's channel and several others, to the point that when he would have conversations with folks like yourself or Dr. Chase or any number of people, I would find myself in the chat room. Well, there he is. The good doctor has joined us. Honest to God, the nicest fellow of all time. He's probably, sick of hearing it, and he'll probably go kick the dog after I said it. But
damn it, I'm just so tired of being called nice things.
Right. But he is really about the nicest guy. But so anyway, long story long, I started watching these channels. I started going into the live chats. I started putting comments in. And it just kind of occurred to me one day saying, there's elements that I see in me in many of these other people talking about books, but nobody's exactly me. And I feel like I have a little bit of a unique voice. I certainly have more years on most of the people that are out on BookTube. Maybe there's something here that I can add. And so I thought, you know what? Amazon has a 30-day return policy. If I go out and get myself a camera, and I go out and get myself a microphone, and I go get myself some lights, and I put it all together, and it's terrible, and it's the worst thing I've ever done, I'm a pretty good judge of quality, I think, and I'll be able to sit back and I'll watch and go, this is terrible. Send it all back to Amazon, go back to watching your shows, and that's that. But so far, the compliments have been just outstanding. People have been so kind, generous with their time to watch an upstart YouTuber. I mean, I have 13 or 14 videos. There's not that many, but I really found it to be fun. So that's kind of how I landed into doing it. I decided I want to try it. And if I like it, cool. And if anyone else likes it, even cooler. And here we are, 5.5, 6 weeks later.
I have to tell you, man, I was jealous at first. Do you know how long it took me to get 100 subscribers? Oh my goodness. I have to say, it is so impressive. Yeah. And you deserve it, because like my first interviews, like I will always keep them up. I'm very, they're like, I'm self-conscious about them, but it's a stepping stone.
And you know what, though, if you ever wonder how you're doing, go back and look at the old videos, right?
Right.
You give yourself an immediate shot of confidence. Yeah.
And well, let's just say that your first video, there's three things that are instantly what I would say is unique to BellTube, to Brian Bell.
Okay.
That is, you start with once upon a time. Okay, you do this thing once upon a time, which I love. You also have these themes that you like. For instance, the disco theme,
Yeah.
or the rock band theme. Okay, I haven't really
Yeah.
seen a lot of that, if any. And then you
Yeah.
always end with a genuine note. Okay, you give a little bit of your experience, whether it's usually through like a life experience and something genuine that you feel is important to say. And I love your, what do you call them at the end, the fortunes. And
Yeah. We do fortunes.
those three things are something unique to you from your very first video. Okay,
Yeah.
it took me a little while to find something that I did that was unique.
Yeah.
So you're doing wonderful, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, 100.
I just feel like what we're doing here on BookTube is in our own way telling a story, right? And so I thought to myself, well, how do most stories start when we're kids and we're growing up? I see my niece is in the chat. Hi, Ellie. She's awesome. But even she taught me this when she was 5 years old. She'd sit on a little ottoman and she would tell everybody, once upon a time. And she would just make it up as she goes along. And she's been inspirational in that opening because I'm sort of like that too. Half the time when I say once upon a time, here's a little Beard of Darkness interview secret. I have no idea what the next line's going to be out of my mouth.
That's even better.
9 out of 10 times, it's the one that makes it because I just get into the mindset of, okay, we're telling a story here. And every story has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I've decided that the end with the One for the Road segment kind of lets everybody know where we're at. The fortune is fun because everybody likes a fortune cookie. And I try to do something, uplifting there. So I do a lot of different things. Yeah, on the channel. Lots of themes.
And so one thing for sure, and I have to say this may or may not be my other half, my lovely other half. She says you're both fun to watch. We all need to smile more, and both of your channels bring a smile to our faces. Keep up the good work. That was a lovely
awesome.
comment.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Mother of Darkness.
Yeah, that's what people. That's what I said. Look, one of these days we have to do. She's always got a newborn on her right now, so it's kind of like not possible. But when it's time, Mr. Darkness will make an appearance.
Awesome. I love it. I love it.
Ryan, a wonderful indie author, he says, "I love the One for the Roads." Is there a story behind that? Is that something that you?
There is. That's an excellent question. And hi, Ryan. He's always on the channel, and he's been very, very positive. And we'll talk about the BookTube community as we go. But the One for the Road segment, when I first started the channel, and in the little trailer, and maybe in my first video, I talked about coming in from the nightclub business and from the bar business, where people of all walks of life, our bar was really known for this. People of all walks of life would come to the bar, and it's a big fam. It's a big family. And, some people may like each other more than others, but it was still a big family. It's a big community. And we really try to get people to leave their troubles at the door on their way in, have a great time. Life will still be out there waiting for you when you go back to your cars or when you take a cab or whatever you're going to do. But for the time that you're with us, you're transported somewhere that's a little bit less burdensome problem-wise. So the One for the Road for me was a little bit like if we still had this virtual community, and that's what we're building is basically a virtual community, where on the way out the door, we can suggest, hey, one more thing before you go back into the world of problems that are waiting for you. Maybe here's something that'll ease that up a little bit or give you something else to think about. I think that as kids, now I'm 20 years older than you, so I don't know if you grew up with Mr. Rogers, but I sure did. Yeah. So I just, I think that the message that we got as kids from Mr. Rogers is incredibly important. And we don't get those messages as when we're adults. Parents are great at giving them to their kids. They're not so great at telling them to their friends or to any other people. And so the One for the Road is it's a bit of a recipe mix, right? I throw a little bit of bar in there. I throw a bit of life experience in there. And I throw a little bit of Mr. Rogers in there to just kind of go, hey, you know what? Even if you don't think anybody else is looking out for you, in my own way, sitting in my living room filming BellTube, I'm looking out for you. And I really believe it. I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true.
Mm. And that genuinity, really, if that's the word, I may be making up words, but the genuine.
I make them up like literally every day. My secret is patented.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
I can sense it. So for me, and I'm sure this is something that maybe a lot of people can sense. I can sense a genuine person, and that was always something I sensed with you. When you talk about your ones for the road, and even going into your fortune, I can tell that you want people to get something from it, that you sincerely care that they leave your video with something to with value. You use that word, and I think that's a wonderful word.
It's the reason for the channel, and value is different for everybody. I know when someone clicks on one of my videos, or I should say one of our videos, because it's really become more of a community than just me. But I feel like there's people that are going to get entertainment out of it. So if I throw on a disco outfit and disco file Dr. Philip Chase, there's people that are going to get tremendous entertainment value from that. That's great. There's other people that are thinking about between this book or that book. And if I go on and say, hey, I really like this book and here's why, there's more of kind of a friendly, this is good, maybe. So there's some value there in a recommendation. Maybe there's just value in knowing actually somebody's making these videos that cares how your day is going. And there's some value there. So whatever the reason someone's coming in, I want to give them the value for the 10 minutes or the 15 minutes or the 20 minutes that they're sharing with me, because that's really all we have is time, right? I mean, Steve Jobs died in his 50s with all the money in the world. And there's this whole famous saying about, you can't take it with you. So if they're going to invest, the most important thing they have is their time. I want to give them something back for it.
There it is. We have a quick question. Bert Strubble, he's always here. He's a community guy. He's wonderful. I just have to know.
Bert's super positive.
Yes, he is. He says, I just have to know how long it takes you to make a video. They are perfect and always fun.
Thank you, Bert. Good question. Filming for me, what normally would end up to be about, say, a 13 or a 14-minute video, I normally record about 18 or 19 minutes. And about 5 minutes gets cut out. And I do it all in one shoot. So what will end up happening is I'll get this big old file off my camera and I'll go up into the editing software, which, by the way, until 5 weeks ago, I'd never opened a video editing software in my life. I'm just such an avid learner, Beard, that I was like, oh, cool, I get to go learn this software now. So I'll go into the software, cut out all the stuff that I think doesn't really line up to the point that I'm trying to get to. And like most other people, we use our ums and ahs and all of that. And when I watch YouTube, specifically home content creators, I like to see that they've taken a little bit of time to clean it up a little bit. Not everybody needs to. Mike is a great example. Mike can run a 15 or 20-minute live take. And yeah, he's drinking his coffee, but that's part of his shtick. It's cool.
It is.
But he's not hemming and hawing the whole way through a 20-minute deal, or he wouldn't have 100,000 subscribers, right? So he's got it dialed in how to do a one-take deal. I'm considerably farther away than that. But thank you, Bert, for noticing.
So Mike's last video, I have to say, because you and I both really enjoy Mike's. He's really what inspired me to come here. I got to have him on my channel one time, and I was freaking out so much throughout the whole video. I skipped him twice on a question. I skipped him twice. But anyway, he does this thing where, and he's evolved, okay? He's evolved, like you said, he's got 100,000 people looking at him. But he does this one take, and it's very natural. It's where I want to be. Sure. And that's one thing in 2024 I'm going to start doing more of. I do a lot of lives we had a newborn, so I haven't done a lot of like videos like what you do. That's going to be new in 2024 once I have a little more time. But what I'm getting at is I really like what you like about it is that one take, but you're really close, man. Like I can tell that you do a few takes, but man, I think that you're so, I don't know. I think you're so close to what Mike does already that it's just wonderful. I do like 15 takes.
That's okay. But you know what? I mean, here's a little thing that I do. Maybe it'll help you. I don't know. I know it works for me. Is my goal with every video that I make is to make it a little bit better than the last one that I did. And it doesn't necessarily mean to be content wise. It could be anything. It could be a different sound effect that I'm using, or a different video editing technique, or it could be getting to the point a little bit faster. It doesn't really make a difference what it is, so long as I'm incrementally increasing a little bit better each time. And then I record it. I write it down. Hey, this is why video 12 is better than video 11. And this is why video 11 was better than video 10. And that gives me an accountability list that I can look at and just say, hey, I'm not as terrible as maybe I'm thinking I am, because look at all these different incremental, changes that improved it.
I actually really like that. And it's probably, I just wrote it down. Something I'm going to bring into what I do, because I think it's not the first time I've heard that. Do something better this time, but it's the first time I'm recognizing it as something that I can do and keep, like what you said, keep yourself accountable, and you can look back and kind of look at that list.
And they don't need to be huge things either. They could be tiny. Oh, cool! I found a cool sound effect. That counts.
Yeah, and by the way, your video editing is really nice. One thing I was talking to my wife the other day about, something I haven't done that I see in your videos and that I see in Bibliotheory's videos and many others, is you guys will take snippets of like film clips. Yes. Yeah. And it fits what you're talking about perfectly. And I think we'd love to try that.
Yeah. I mean, why not? If you're watching a show, or you're thinking about, just really whatever, and it occurs to you that might look cool in a video sometime, take a note. I've noticed when you do interviews, you write a lot of stuff down. You can do the same thing when you're, thinking about TV shows, movies, whatever. Yeah.
I think that's
fun. I think for me, at least too, because I'm just using a static camera with me and then the books in the background, to insert some stuff into the video makes it a little bit more visually appealing sometimes for a very short attention span world that we live in.
I want to throw up Ryan's. By the way, man, I said this before, but I love the picture, man. Showing, got the hair that I can't grow, but the beard, I'm loving it. It's growing nice, brother.
Great.
He says, "Hey, Matt, don't forget we need to make video, or you need to make videos too. We want to see those gauges." It's funny, man, because I don't ever show him, but he must be paying attention. So thank you, man. So how far back, or let's just put it this way, when did you find your love for reading?
Really early. So my grandfather used to bring me books from the time I was about 4, 5, and 6 until he passed away when he was 7, or when I was 7. So I started reading really, really young, and probably just basic books. I still have them all, but in terms of fantasy and things like that in the genre, probably 1980, 1981, something like that.
Okay.
These were the books. I brought props because I always bring props to the show. Yeah.
So what is that?
This is Piers Anthony, The Apprentice Addict trilogy. I read these in the early 80s. Piers Anthony wrote a ton of fantasy for us kids in the 80s. And he had premier bookshelf space in the B. Daltons, which is the bookstore that was in Minnesota, where I'm from. But he was very, very widely published. When you went to the fantasy section in the 80s, you'd see all his books. The thing about him is that, like many authors, it came out later in life that he's a bit of a misogynist and he's got personal issues. And you read back the material, it doesn't really hold up in today's world. But in some regard, there's a reason I still have him on my bookshelves. Because if not for him, we wouldn't be talking today. I would have found a different hobby. So I really do owe, since 1980, 1981, this giant, love of fantasy books to what he was putting out there. So, yeah.
So I think you hit a spot that I really, truly believe in, regardless of history, whether we believe it's good, bad, or other. It's history, and that's the reason. One of the reasons that we are where we are. Okay, you said some things about him personally.
Yeah.
There's a reason we are at a point in history that we are, and it's because those people paved a path, whether it was in a positive way or a negative way. And I think that needs to be taken in consideration. Just because somebody likes the art doesn't mean you have to like the artist. And I think that's a huge thing. I like that you kind of covered that.
Right. And sometimes it's hard to hold to the standards of what we would consider acceptable today, where we've evolved as a society. And evolution takes time, both, physical, from evolving from the oceans up to mankind, versus, mental and spiritual evolution takes time. And we've come remarkably far in the last 100 years. We're going to be going, into crazy cool places in the next few hundred years. But yeah, it doesn't, for me, it doesn't invalidate some of these earlier time books.
I like that word, invalidate. It doesn't. So you create this channel. You're really doing something, as far as my opinion, and I think everybody would agree. Just looking at the numbers, something that you're having explosive gain. You're doing something wonderful. What are some goals? Have you set some goals for your channel?
I only started thinking about goals in terms of channel growth maybe in the last week or two, because it really wasn't a number, wasn't so much the goal. My goal was to get 50 videos out and then get another 50 videos out. And whatever came along the way of doing those two sets of 50 will come along the way. But I was watching something about, I think it might have been Alex Friedman, the podcast where he had Mr. Beast on. And Mr. Beast was talking about your first 100 videos are really going to kind of be sucky. And so I said, all right, well, this guy is the biggest booktuber there is. If I pretend like I can't learn something from him, that would be a mistake on my part. So if he's saying that get to your first 50, then get to the second set of 50, and then take a look at where you're at, that was really my goal. And it's only now that, the channel's not even 6 weeks old, and we're just a few people under, I think, 700 subscribers right now.
686 when we started.
Yeah, so it's going good. I think these kind of things just duplicate and duplicate. And one of the things that I mentioned in my last upload was that people, when they see that there's other people subscribed, their inclination is to click the subscribe button, because they feel like, all right, enough people also are into this, maybe that there's something here. They know they can always click the unsubscribe button if they find differently or otherwise. But I don't know. I mean, I guess short-term goal, I don't think it's impossible that we hit 1,000 by the end of January. I think maybe sooner. Maybe sooner. I don't know. I have very long-term goals with the channel, but it's going to take a long time to get there. So that's okay. We do one video at a time.
Yeah, man, I like that attitude. That's kind of this, really very similar to me. I've seen that same video where he's like, do 100 videos and then talk to me, because you're going to learn so much in those first 100. Right. It's such a learning curve. And I think we came in the game, if you will, this YouTube game with similar knowledge about the YouTube game, if you will. Video editing, dude, never done it. videotaping myself talking on video, very much an uncomfortable experience, something I had to learn to do. This live thing, very uncomfortable. But I like people, okay? So it's easy for me to do that in person. I'll talk to somebody in Walmart I've never met till the end of time. And I just had to kind of relate that with what I was doing, with people specifically paying attention to me. And it kind of just growed, and I'm comfortable doing it now. Still get nervous.
Absolutely. But you know what? The more you do it, the more those nerves will go away. I mean, it's like putting on a comfortable pair of jeans after a while. You know, you get them when they're brand new, who knows? But after you worn them 1,000 times, it's just your comfortable pair of jeans.
Absolutely. I'm going to throw, sorry guys, if I miss your comment, there's a lot coming in. I'm sure you can see that.
They can fire questions away too. So whatever, this is your show, Bearded Darkness. I'm here for you. So
thank you, man. You're just the best kind of guy. Chris Navo says, Brian, you have been putting in a lot of hard work this past month. So the quick sub rise has been well earned and deserved. The community sees it, and that kind of leads.
He's awesome. He's awesome, by the way. And I'm just going to shout him out back because he was my team leader during a readathon that we had over the summer, and we crushed the competition, and we did it really good. And he was an extremely effective team leader. He's got a great YouTube channel. I hope people check it out. Christopher Novel. If he's not been on your show, he needs to be because he's awesome.
So we have absolutely talked about it, and it's one of those things that we're just trying to make a time. He knows I've been interested from like my very first week of doing this, so it's definitely in the future.
He's a real guy. He's the real deal.
And he's got this bookshelf behind him, but there's like this mystique lighting behind it. And he talks about it. He's like, man, it cost me like $15. Dude, that was one of the best $15 you ever spent.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. Smoke and mirrors, man. $15, you could look like $1 million. So yeah.
Absolutely. He did it right. So that really kind of leads into what I was wanting to ask you next, man. This community, right? What have you come to love, or what I feel like, just like what you were talking about, you've been in a team with Chris. What have you been loving about this community and started loving even more maybe when you started this channel?
That's an easy question. And it's very, very clear that the people in the BookTube community, at least this, as they say, corner of BookTube, is full of collaborators, not competitors. And look at all, these people that they come into the chat and they're pumping you up and they're pumping me up and we're doing the same back to them. That's how effective, organizations work. And that's how effective communities grow, is by helping each other out and collaborating as much as possible. I have yet to have anybody just take a huge dump on me for no reason. That's part of BookTube. But in the business world, that happens every day. And they caveat it saying, well, it's just business. In the bar business, the bar owners are not collaborators with you. They're trying to get customers, and damn you if your line outside is bigger than their line, what can they do to steal? I mean, it's cutthroat. It's not productive. BookTube is the 100% opposite. And when you run into people, like I said, I mean, the king of kindness himself, Dr. Chase, you run into him and the people that are like him. This is a place that you want to hang out. Right? They're supportive people.
They are. It's like it's one of the best feelings. Two things. When I do a live, first, that's obviously my favorite feeling. When I see all of these comments to our right here, it just makes my heart glow. Another thing I love is being in those comments or below the video, whatever it may be, for all these people that show me support, and even if they don't show me support, I like putting that positive vibe out there.
Right. And that's something that I've tried to do since prior to doing my own channel. So when I'll give you an example. So like when Mike would have his live talks, or Tori would have her talks on Tori Talks, or Philip, or any of them, whenever they do a live, I was there in the chat so I could give them back something that they've been giving me unknowingly, right? They don't know me from a hole in the wall, right? Some guy here in Minneapolis, what do they know about me? They don't know that they just improved my day. So if I can go into their chat and crack a joke and put a smile on their face or say something that I really enjoyed their last video, which is true, then that makes them feel better too. And they feel like, you know what? It's a two-way street. They're putting out effort, but it's well received and it's coming back to them.
So real quick, somebody who I know, I've loved, just like when I started watching this BookTube thing, man, he just does really thoughtful videos. He is the whole experience, the videography, and he's up late tonight. Let me just tell you, he's up late. Andrew Watson, The Fool's Tale.
His channel's awesome. Yeah,
man,
his channel's great.
It is. Thank you for being up, man. Thank you for being here. I've had him on the channel. He's one of the nicest guys ever. Just like it's this common theme amongst BookTube as we're talking about.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
Well, I think in general, to your point about Andrew being such a nice guy and so many other people, I think that's a pretty common thing in people who read fantasy and science fiction. You tend to run across more open-minded, accepting people because they're exposed to that type of thinking throughout their reading. And the longer they've been doing it sometimes, the more open that they are. So I think that it kind of goes hand in hand. I'm not sure. It might just be a bonkers theory that I have, but I know that people that tend to read a lot of fantasy or science fiction, sometimes they're quite introverted. And they love it when someone cares about what they actually have to say because they read because, they're solitary people a lot of the times. I can be, very much so.
I think the fact that there's times where I'm very much what you said. I'm with myself, and I'm one of those guys. I can absolutely have fun 100% of the time by myself. I have fun with people too. So so when Andrew tells me in one of his videos that he's had this experience, most recently with Robin Hobb, he has this great video. He's like, Robin, damn you, but I love you. But damn you, but I really love you too. Like, it gives me that experience that or shows me experience he had that I can't wait to have when I read her books. So, man, keep doing your thing, Andrew. Love your channel, of course. You know this. But man, it's something I've really since when I found your channel and we kind of talked a little bit backstage about it was the Bell Flask. Would you show us what kind of did your businessman thing? I love this. So
a few years ago, before I was in the bar business, I was in the packaging business, and we being myself and my father, invented these things, and they're called Bell Flasks. And what they are is they're plastic flasks. They hold 16 ounces, but they go through every metal detector, no problem. So if you want to go to a festival, if you want to go to a concert, anywhere where they're not really looking for flasks, they're looking for weapons, right? They're looking for knives and guns and all that stuff. They don't care about this so long as it doesn't go off, in the metal detector. Fits in your pocket, you take it. I have a lot of people that buy them for hydration, that use them in the gym. There's a lot of people that take them on walks with their dogs because it brings water with them. The cool part is when they're empty, they just roll up. I mean, look, it's nothing, amazing. Right? They come with a carabiner clip, they come with a funnel, and we're consistently in the top 10 on Amazon in the drinking flask category of all of Amazon.
That's huge.
At least in the United States store, which is great.
Yeah. So, man, I think that is not only something that a lot of people aim to do is create something that's useful or something that can aid somebody's life, man. But in a business aspect, I find that so interesting because we talked a little bit about it. I was in sales for a little bit. I loved selling things and the numbers were fun. Do you have that same experience? Like,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you get feedback from customers and they'll leave feedback like, I went to this concert and I brought my favorite, rum or my favorite vodka or a bottle of wine or whatever, and they enjoyed it at their seat and didn't pay $15 to $20 per drink at the concession stand, and they paid $5 for a plastic flask instead of walking out with a $120 liquor bill at the end of the night. That helps people.
Sure.
Yeah, it's fun to do. And like I said, they get used a ton for hiking and climbing and hydration. It's not all this, discreet, hidden, suspect stuff. There's real legitimate exercise uses for them as well. But yeah, it's just something that I'm lucky that I have a dad who's very brilliant and is a great packaging mind to help me come up with that. And yeah, I mean, I think the sky is the limit as far as Bell Flask goes. We're going to do some more different sizes. But again, that's why I named the channel BellTube, because it's all about, in business. I went to school for business. I'm not sure any of it is relevant anymore because I went to school in the late 80s. And to time myself, I triple majored in marketing, management, and international business at Wisconsin. And this is all before the internet was invented. So you can imagine how useless a lot of the information that I got became the minute that the internet,
you were on the cusp of a huge change in that whole thing.
Right. Just a complete, change of the entire business and world landscape changed. And if you can imagine learning about how to do business when there's no social media, there's no Google, you can't look up something. There's no LinkedIn to try to find the purchasing manager of such and such a company. No, you got to go get on an airplane and bang on their door and hope someone's there to answer. So,
Nikki has a wonderful idea, and I'm sure you've heard it.
The beach?
The beach. That's a wonderful idea.
It is. People use them at the beach all the time. It's a great idea.
It is. Montague, my Discord moderator, guy that pokes me with a stick.
I love that.
Right, man. He keeps me really. You need somebody to keep you accountable, and I'm doing my outline right now due to him.
Yeah. And I see him all the time on your interviews, and he keeps you on task. And that's awesome to have. He's basically like your remote producer, right? Where he'll be like, hey, you got this amount of time. And hey, don't forget to do this. And don't forget you've got this interview coming up. He's the offstage remote producer. I
love that you pointed that out, because there's so many times where at the end of an interview, I may not remember who I'm interviewing next because I'm a brain fart. I'm a walking brain fart. And it's like first of all, he's a wonderful writer. I'm reading one of his short stories that he's submitting for Writers of the Future, something that I planned on submitting something. I just haven't had the time. I'm kind of feeling my process out, and he's still helping me with that. And man, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but he made a dedication that I would love what he was writing, man. And he's a genuine guy, and I just hope he knows how much I appreciate what he does and how well he writes. And he's a busy guy too. Like he's a guy like
that's awesome.
He's all about his business, man. So shout out to E.L. Montague.
He's a good dude for sure.
He says, Mr. Bell, you have just showed me what I'm giving my employees for Christmas.
All right. They're going to be happy employees.
There you go.
Thank you. That's very nice of you. Thank you.
So we were kind of talking about this beforehand. I didn't really make a question for this, but you really made me want to talk about it. Some interview qualities that I can do a little bit better. I'm always in search of something that I'm not doing 100% better and that I can improve on.
Sure. I would say, and this is going to be a time commitment on your side.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when you're interviewing authors, you ought to read at least halfway through their first book.
Okay.
Before you have them on. Because I think, I don't know, just think that there's a comfort level when an author comes on, knowing that the interviewer is familiar with their work to some degree. Maybe, these fantasy books, Beard, are huge, okay? So if you've got a guy coming on 4 days from now and they put out a 750-page book, okay, that's not necessarily realistic. But if you can get through the first 100 pages and you get a feel for the vibe of what they're doing, I think from the interviewee's point of view, they're going to open up to you a little bit more because they're going to feel like you made an investment of your time into reading what they created.
I like that. And it's something I've actually considered myself, and I'm so glad you said that. And it was something at first that I gave this channel like it was somewhere where people could come to talk about their books. And then I've kind of, for 2024, changing that a little bit to point in the direction that you're talking about. I think that the interviews will become much more genuine and to the point. And I'm not going to be doing as many with authors, but I think that the content will be much better. And like you said, much more individual.
Well, like I was sharing with you backstage, you have a quality that is very, very difficult to learn. I've hired thousands of people in my life, and I'm telling you, well, maybe not thousands, but certainly hundreds. And you've got an inner curiosity. You've got an inner enthusiasm. These are things that really aren't fakeable, and they're really hard to learn unless you spend a ton of time doing self-development work. You come to the table with that. So if your next big whole thing that you need to do is read 75 pages of some guy's book, that's a drop in the hat compared to how difficult it would have been for you to get a curious personality or for you to get a general love and passion and enthusiasm for interviewing people. You have that already. The tough part is done. So what I'm suggesting is a tiny little thing that I think will make your content not only better, I think you'll feel better about yourself. And it gets back to that jeans, analogy we were talking about earlier. It'll make those jeans feel a lot more comfortable, a lot quicker.
I think you're absolutely right. And I have had that self consciousness where if I haven't read an author's work, maybe I can't relate in the interview as well as I could have. And that's very much where I'm headed. So, man, that is something that I really appreciate that you said. And the next,
I'll always be straight with you, Mr. Beard. No doubt about it.
I love it.
And you know what? I see in the chat we've had some people that have worked for me before, and I'll say hi to all those guys too. But they know. I mean, I'm very much. I'll tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'll try to do it in a way that makes you feel okay about it. But I'm very sincere. The difficult things about what you do, you've already got them. So now it's just finessing it a little bit.
I value that. That's something that you've showed me through your videos is what to value. And I never really thought about, well, in the way that you put it, which is in a genuine way, where value lies in what we're doing here. And where it does lie with me, where I want to show that value, lies in what the critical advice that you just gave me lies. So I know that's sincere. I appreciate you. And
I think sometimes too, authors may come on the channel to get the word about their book out there, right? And so they're there marketing their product, and they're doing it in sometimes in an elevator pitchy kind of a way where they're telling you about the book and they're telling the viewer about why they should consider picking it up. And that's level one. The way that they would get to level two, I think, is if you are already somewhat familiar with their general tone of writing and you can engage them in that way, that's going to up their enthusiasm for being interviewed by you. And that enthusiasm is going to show to the audience And then the end result of that is the audience is more likely to buy the book because they're going to get more engaged with the interview because it's a better back and forth.
I love that. And the next few authors I'm having on, that is a true point in the interview. I've actually read their books, and it's
awesome.
The questions that I have are much deeper than my regular go-to questions.
Yeah.
Something that that we've kind of, I've seen you in the chat say is you're really into progression fantasy, or you've read a lot.
I am. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit maybe about your favorite progression fantasies, because I'm looking for recommendations.
Absolutely. I came with lists for you, Mr. Beard.
All right.
I came to the Beard of Darkness prepared for this question.
All right.
First, I would like to start by differentiating a little bit between what's called progression fantasy and lit RPG. And lit RPG, for anybody who doesn't know, is a shortened phrase of literature and RPG role-playing game. What I was thinking about this earlier, when you mentioned that you might want to talk about it, and everybody's had a different kind of description of what they are. I think Bookborn may have done more of a deep dive on some of these genres. I listen to, and I do almost all of my progression fantasy and lit RPG on Audible. I don't read them.
Okay.
But I do have a couple I read ones for you as well that I took some notes for earlier today to give those to you. But for me, progression fantasy tends to have a little bit more of an Eastern vibe, almost more of an Asian vibe. And what happens, and these are all about adventure stories, okay? So you're not going to find Homer's Odyssey in lit RPG, okay? Yeah. You're not going to find William Shakespeare in a progression fantasy book, but you also don't go down the Doritos line, the chips aisle at the grocery store. When you're in the mood for Doritos, you're not looking for lobster. You're looking for a bag of Doritos. And that's kind of what some of this more fun, less heavy material is. Progression fantasy, to me, like I said, it's got a little bit more of an Eastern vibe. You'll find a lot of book series, Cradle being probably the most popular one, where the powers that are gained by the main character, they tend to grow in power. That's the whole point of these kinds of genres, is that a character starts at a starting place, and as the series goes on, they get stronger and meaner and badder and, ultimately huge powerhouses. Progression side seems to generate those kinds of abilities from within. So you'll read a lot about people meditating and gathering their mana and circulating, their own inner energies to make breakthroughs, to develop to the new thing. That to me is more progression fantasy. It's not something that I totally love a ton because the stories seem to kind of get a little repetitive to me when they work that way. Lit RPG, on the other hand, can be a lot of different categories. It's much broader to me, but in the simplest way I can explain it, progression kind of comes from within, where lit RPG comes from without, comes from the outside. So it might be a god granting powers to this person to level up. Or it could be somebody's putting on a virtual reality helmet and they're starting at level 1 and they do a bunch of things to acquire powers and move up the chain that way. But it's through their actions and it's through other opportunities more so than the inner kind of spiritual growth of progression fantasy. So for lit RPG, I know I'm talking a lot, but for lit RPG, for Audible, the go-to right now for everybody, the standard is Dungeon Crawler Carl. I'm sure you've heard about that plenty. But sorry, I got distracted over at Philip's question. But Dungeon Crawler Carl on Audible is the only way to go. There's a narrator that owns a company. His name is Jeff Hayes. His company is called Sound Booth Theater. And these guys are pros. They elevate, and I don't mean pros in the literary sense of fine verbiage, fine words. I mean, they're professionals. They come in there ready to go. There are sound effects. There are the voices this guy does. You feel like you are living in a story. And I cannot for the life of me imagine reading a Dungeon Crawler Carl book when there's this guy with this company that is elevating the written material way above and beyond everything else. Another one that I wrote down for you is a series called The Good Guys. That's on Audible. And that's about a guy. Dungeon Crawler, you may have heard about it before. It's basically these aliens come down and kill almost everybody on Earth, and the ones that are remaining are thrown into a dungeon, into a reality show. And if they can survive, they might be able to be let loose and become citizens of the universe, like everybody, all the quadrillions of people that are watching them on this reality show on Earth right now. That's kind of the premise of Dungeon Crawler Carl. The Good Guys is by an author named Eric Ugland, Ugland. And the narrator on Audible is a guy named Neil Helligers. And he really brings that series to life too. That's more of a portal fantasy where this guy on Earth who's living in Detroit, not too far away from your neck of the woods growing up. This guy's living in Detroit, and all of a sudden he wakes up and he's not on Earth anymore. And he's been brought to this other land called Voldrani. And it's very cool. I can't get into too much without spoiling it, but highly recommend it. Another lit RPG that I've got for you, if you're more into reading them than listening to them, is a series called Awaken Online. And that is by a guy named Travis Bagwell. And the first book is called Catharsis. And the premise of this book is this company goes out and invents VR helmets that you put on at home, and you can wear them indefinitely and live an entirely different life in VR, which is as realistic as human life. But it's more of kind of a D&D adventurous kind of a world. It's a magical world. It's very cool. I think the narration on that series is just okay. So that's why I would say I read on that one.
So, man, wow.
I just unloaded on you.
You did.
That was a fun thing.
In the most wonderful way, though. I knew that I would get an answer like that. I brought my pen. My wife gave me these early Christmas presents. She got me a bunch of nice pens. And I brought them for you because I knew from your comments, because I see the comments, and I can't wait to check out these ones I've never heard of. So just a little background on my lit RPG experience. Yeah. I didn't read Dungeon Crawler, Carl. I have started to listen to it. I own the audiobook.
Okay, cool.
I've given it some time until I've really dived in. I don't know. But I've heard what you're talking about. New achievement. And it's incredible. I don't think I'll ever read it because of the experience
You wouldn't want to miss that. And are you on book one of that?
I am. Okay,
so here's the good news. With every entry in that, the production budget went up. Wow. So it gets better. They put more time into it. It's just everything is better. At least on the Audible side of things, it's really, really, really good. And there's 6 books out now, so you got a lot to go through.
I was going to say,
and those budget books also is. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was saying there's quite a few books out. I heard, so 6.
Yeah. So I mean, they're the kind of books that you don't have to think too hard to listen to. And a lot of the time when I'm doing Bell Flask, right, for Amazon, and I'm putting these boxes together and doing whatever, I have lit RPG going on in my ears because I don't have to pay attention. It's not like I'm trying to listen to a Christopher Rocchio book, right, and have this giant space opera going on. But yeah. So lit RPG is great for a casual listen and highly enjoyable too.
2 things. I am very excited with these recommendations you've given me, and I'm so glad Tori is here. And I just want to let her know we've talked about her. She's wonderful. Her channel is wonderful.
Yeah.
She sets the tone for an honest channel, right? There's not she's just got that most honest channel.
She's totally authentic.
She is.
Yeah, she's totally authentic. She She comes on, she turns the camera on, you're getting Tori. I mean,
You're getting Tori.
You're getting Tori. One way or the other, you're getting Tori. She's awesome. And one of the questions that you had asked me, I even took a note to mention Tori, because you asked me what books have I pleasantly been surprised with this year. The Bloodstones, for sure. I read her earlier book, Phased, which I really did enjoy quite a bit. Honestly, if I didn't know Tori was the other captain that I had in my first readathon. But if I didn't know her, I probably would have never encountered Phased rather, and it's a supernatural story. But it's really mostly about high school, age people, which normally really wouldn't be my go-to. But I'm glad that, I'm part of her Discord, and I'm glad that I'm friends with her, because it was really good. But when I got the Bloodstones, I'm telling you, it was on a totally different level. And it's hard to say, because I don't mean to invalidate the earlier work, because it's really good as well. But when you talked about what was I most surprised about, the Bloodstones really, really surprised me. Because if you crossed her name off the title and you put any major mainstream well-known author that's in every single bookstore in the country and slap that name on it, I believe it. It's that good. She hit a home run for sure. So everybody should go read that book. It's really, really good.
I have
Same
to
with
say,
Dr. Phillips' books. So yeah.
I have to say, I told Philip on my last channel, or my last live, I'm dedicating a month to his trilogy in 2024. It's gonna be the month of Philip, and I can't wait to afterwards have him on and talk about his books. But yeah, I'm like 30% through the Bloodstones, and man, I am absolutely impressed. I'm loving it, and Tori, man, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you.
I think that sometimes, I had an old business mentor of mine tell me that sometimes trust and respect are a little inverse of each other. So the more you trust somebody, sometimes the less you respect them. Like, I'm sure when you were dating your wife, you talked to her in some way. You would never yell at her to take out the garbage, okay? But, but 4 kids into it later, you totally, trust her to the moon, but sometimes we say things we might not say on a first date, right?
100.
And I think that regarding Tori in particular, because I've known her through the BookTube community, it's easy to kind of put I know this person, and somehow think that maybe they're not, the next Robert Jordan, or they're not the next whoever. But that's totally BS. They might be. It's just that you sort of already know them, so you're coming at it with, whatever. If I did not, if I was not friendly with Philip Chase, and I went and bought the Adan trilogy, I would be like, holy, where's this guy been? Okay, how have I missed all of his books? It's so good.
That's so good. So first of all, that in a couple different ways, that is cool, because first of all, I know these people and I get to talk with them, and I'm in the same community with them, and I get to look forward to what you're saying, especially about Philip and the rest of Tori's books. But in another way, I totally relate with what you're saying. It's like, okay, because I know them. Right. They couldn't be this amazing thing. And then you found out they're this amazing thing. And you're like, man, I really know somebody special.
You really do. And you really do. And we're very fortunate that authors happen to also be booktubers sometimes. They're not all that way, but we're really, really fortunate. And honestly, as kind as Philip Chase has been to me, I wouldn't gush about his books as much as I do if I thought they were just okay, or if I thought, hey, it's kind of standard epic fantasy fare. It's not. It's so much deeper than that. And I think that people that have decided to take not only a journey into epic fantasy is a hobby, but also into some self-awareness and some self-development, personal improvement, evolution of one's own being. There's elements of all of that in the Adan trilogy, and you can find them all over the place. And so It's a cool trilogy. There's something there for everybody for sure.
One of the coolest experience, and thank you, R.H. Snow says one of the most wonderful things ever. Oh my gosh, this is inception of book review specials. Beard versus Bell. It's
Rock
Beard
on, brother.
Thank you for saying that. We really encompass, I hope, the same values. We're both lovely people. I hope that I'm a lovely person. I know you are. So thank you for saying that.
For sure.
And secondly, so one of my first experiences with hearing about Philip's books was a guy that started his channel like at the exact same time as me, and who is a really good friend. I really love him as a person and what he does. It's Matt Pittman. He does Go Read Books.
Yeah. That's a great guy.
He is, man, and he's a very honest guy too. He's got really good values, and I like the way that he talks about books. And I think the first time I seen him go all in as far as reviews was Philip's books, and I just love to hear him talk about it. And he really got me excited about the Eve and trilogy. So that's super fun.
Gonna love it.
So this is another comment section thing. Urban fantasy.
Yeah. So urban fantasy, if you're ready, I got some for you.
Oh man, I'm ready.
So let me try to give my definition of urban fantasy. I'm going to do a whole video on this, so this will be the very abbreviated version. Urban fantasy is traditionally changing the setting of the world to where we're most familiar with. Now, it could be something like the Dresden Files, which is set in Chicago. It could be something like Sandman Slim, which is set in Hollywood. It could be the Eric Carter series is set in Los Angeles. The Alex Verus series is set in London. Or it could be a fictionalized urban fantasy like the Greenbone Saga, which is set in kind of almost like a parallel Hong Kong type of a vibe to it, where it's still kind of where we are in time and space because there's airplanes and there's telephones. I mean, no one's picking up their cell phone in the way of Edan, okay? So Edan is epic fantasy, whereas we get into urban fantasy, you're gonna get somebody like Harry Dresden, who is a private investigator wizard based out of Chicago. And they're gonna talk about Chicago landmarks. And when you read Sandman Slim, which is you gotta read Sandman Slim. Sandman Slim by Richard Kadrey, Kadrey. There are 12 books in his series. They're not super for the faint of heart. If you can take some rough language, you'll be fine. Then you're going to love it. I'll give you the quick premise. Sandman Slim is about a guy that is a magician, and he lives in Hollywood, and he's hanging out with his other magician friends. They betray him, and they do this ritual and send him to hell, where he basically has to become the devil's hitman for many years in hell. And on page 1, chapter 1 of Sandman Slim, he escapes from hell. And his whole mission is to go find all these people that betrayed him and sent him there in the first place.
Wow, you really that's so much my alley, dude. Like,
how good is that?
Yeah.
Hell's hitman has escaped the one place you can't escape to go find the people that put him there.
Wow.
Great. And the cat is an awesome dude. He's on Twitter. We communicate. He's done me some favors before with photography because he's an amazing photographer as well. But yeah, Sandman Slim, you would love it for urban fantasy. And if you're making a list, and if anybody else is making a list, you might like The Iron Druid by Kevin Hearn. Here's the premise of that one. Atticus O'Sullivan is a 2,000-year-old druid walking around in, I believe, Arizona, and he's been on the run from this Irish pantheon of gods for the last 2,000 years because he stole a sword he wasn't supposed to. And he's now coming out of hiding 2,000 years later to try to deal with whatever this pantheon of Irish gods has coming for him. Yeah. So there's another really good one. And if you like animal companions, he's got one of the best ones in urban fantasy.
I know that. So this is funny you say that. I know that I will love an animal companion. I don't know if I've
Yeah,
read an animal companion book.
yeah,
I feel well. No, I'm sorry. I have. James Rollins' The Moonfall Saga is amazing. There's a lot of animal companions in that. That's probably the only one.
do they talk?
No, they do not talk.
Okay, so this one talks.
Okay, that's
And
even more of a companion.
our main character, Atticus, is a druid. He can talk to any animal. So, yeah,
I
you would
love
like
that.
him too. Man, I'll load you up with books. You better be careful.
That is absolutely something I've looked so much forward to asking you because
Yeah,
I knew that you were experienced in this fantasy game, which I've been reading for 5 years, but that's nothing. Okay,
yeah,
I'm still reading these foundational books like The Hobbit,
yeah.
Wheel
Awesome.
of Time.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
So, but I'll tell you, like the Wheel of Time is great when you want to escape to somewhere that you're never going. Okay. And you want to go to a land, and sci-fi is really good at that too. Like, especially like Rocky's books, The Sun Eater, or the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. We're never going to these crazy far out Jupiter worlds or whatever else. But, and sometimes you're in the mood for that, right? But
yeah.
sometimes there's a part of us that I don't think anybody would read fantasy literature if they didn't have a little piece of them on the inside that wished it were kind of true,
Oh
that
yeah.
wished there was actually really tangible magic in the world, right? And so what urban fantasy gives us is that outlet where, gosh, here's a reality where there's this wizard in Chicago and he does real magic. Or there's this dude that escaped from hell in Hollywood and is a crazy ass magician looking for revenge. That can be a little bit fun for us as readers because secretly we all kind of wish there was a little bit of magic.
And there's a part of me also that may go even a little bit deeper. That's like I'm just waiting for that story that says, there's actually magic going on. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
dude. So I totally agree with you.
yeah, yeah,
I'm very excited about this, so I have to talk about it. You keep kind of bringing
sure,
it up. So, Christopher Rocchio, man, I'm
yeah,
gonna be done with Empire of Silence when I get to chat with him, and
yeah,
it is just unlike any book I've ever read. It
yeah,
is deep. It's relatable. The characters and the world is being built in a way I've never read before. Did you have a
yeah.
similar experience?
Yeah, I did. So interestingly enough, another series that you'd asked me what I was pleasantly surprised with this last year was Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe. And I had
Ooh.
avoided this. I had put this in my last video. I had avoided Book of the New Sun for decades because I heard it was too difficult. Um, I literally heard, you know what, this book is it's not understandable. The language is very challenging and it seemed like it was homework and I didn't want to do homework when I'm doing fantasy reading. I watched some booktubers out there. I specifically asked Matt from Matt on Books, who's out in Berlin. I said, I was in one of his chats. I said, Matt, can I read this book? Here's what I've read before. Is this something that I can do? And he's like, absolutely, man. Just do it. Forget all the BS about it being too difficult. Just go for it. So I read it. I was super, super pleasantly surprised. And how that relates to your question about Christopher Rocchio's books is that they have a little bit of a similar framing in that our main character is telling the story from the very far future of the events that he's retelling them. And
Yes.
there's quite a bit of Gene Wolfe influence, particularly in the second book in Howling Dark.
Mm.
So I think here's what I think. I think once you get through the Sun Eater series, you may take a look at the Book of the New Sun because you're going to feel like it's somewhat relatable and you're used to it a little bit.
Before your channel, and I have to be honest with you, I was very much on that side because I've heard that
Right.
of Gene. I've heard that.
Yeah.
It's hard to understand. It's like you'll fall into nowhere.
Yeah.
But through your comments, I have been thoroughly convinced, I guess is the
Yeah.
word, to put that on my Amazon wish list, and I will read it now
Yeah.
because of
Well,
what you said.
think about it this way. Have you ever seen one of those game shows where the person goes in into the booth and there's all that money flying around and they got to grab as much cash as they can before the timer runs out, right? So I look at Book of the New Sun kind of like that. You're probably not going to grab all the cash, okay? You're probably going to let some fly away. The timer's probably going to run out, but you're still going to get something out of it. It was still worth walking into that booth, right? To play the game, even if you walked out with $1, you got something more than you did before you walked into the booth.
Something I find myself doing more now is I'm becoming a little more experienced with reading a really dense prose, is trusting the author. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm reading a book and I may be a little confused, but I know I've really paid attention, I'll tell you an example. Let me see. Mike Shackle. Okay. He there's some times in his book where all these points of views really start to become overwhelming. And then all of a sudden, I remember like writing him. I'm like, I am so glad I trusted you, because all of a sudden there's this vortex of understanding.
Sure.
So does that apply with Gene Wolfe?
It does. With Gene Wolfe, for me, and I've described it kind of like reading an acid dream. It's not so much like I feel like I'm putting this great trust in the author. It's just kind of like it just goes through the experience. And whatever you get out of the experience is what you're going to get. I don't know. I never met the man. I don't know to trust him or not. And since it was the first Gene Wolfe book, I couldn't look back and say, hey, well, I've read, such and such by him, and I trusted that he got me to here before. So sure. The only thing I could do is I could trust the other booktubers like Matt, and I know Philip recently read the Book of the New Sun as well, and I could trust those guys. But in terms of the author, it's kind of like, you know what? I'm going to go on this ride, and I'll find out whether it was worth my time. I'll figure out whether the guy earned my trust by the time I get to the end. He did. But yeah, I think his comment is exactly right. If you approach the Book of the New Sun in a way that you're cool with just reading it, and however you feel about you reading it is cool, then great. If you feel like you need to understand where we're at in every single plot point, it may not be for you. But some people like atmospheric and dreamy kind of quality books. I happen to be one of them. So it worked really good for me.
So that very much is one that I feel like, I mention it quite frequently why I started this channel, and I'm in the pursuit of knowledge. Okay. As a young man, I was not that guy. Okay. I did not read. I did not search for that. I was kind of tied up in these very selfish things.
So think about this though. You're in your early 30s, right?
33.
So think about, you take care of yourself, man. You have decades for all these amazing things. Started now. You're considering it late because some of us were nerdy kids and read them when we were, 8 or 9 or 10 years old. But man, you've got all kinds of time to read amazing books. And you know what? I promise you, in your early 30s, you're smarter than you were in your early 20s. So you're going to be capable of reading more challenging work right now than you would have been. So maybe everything kind of has its own, time and place, and everything there is a season. And this is your season to get into reading.
I love that philosophy, man. It really just coincides with a lot of things that I think too. I have to shout out some people real quick that are popping in. Ithra Munchwell, thank you so much for being here. She's a patron. And Bibliotheory, man, loving absolutely everything you're doing. Loved your video today. Your top
it's a good video.
It was great. And of course, my guy Andrew. With Andrew Wizardly Reads, man, he's been on this channel. He knows I love his channel. So thank you for popping in.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And one thing that I love about Andrew is he always has that enthusiasm. He's really got it down.
Yeah.
Even his shorts are like, I gotta watch this. So, I want to know what he's saying.
Yeah.
So you're doing a
Well,
wonderful thing.
it gets back to the authenticity that we were talking about earlier. Andrew loves reading and he loves books, and it just emanates from him. He emanates a passion for books, and
Yep.
it's inescapable. It's unavoidable. That's why a lot of people, it's why he's got 5,000 subscribers. It's like, yeah,
It makes
shows.
sense, right?
I hope I haven't talked too much over the comments, by the way.
Oh my gosh, no, there's no such thing. That's
Okay.
why I love lives, man. It's just like anywhere this goes, I'm so comfortable with
Okay,
it,
cool.
and I love it.
Cool.
One thing, man, John A. Douglas, him and I have been friends since the very beginning of my channel. I've loved his channel. He's loved my channel. We've both like repped each other and shared our stuff. So I just want to shout him out, and I can't wait to dip into the Black Crown.
Yeah, I have it too. I bought it from watching his interview. I literally bought it live while you guys were on.
I remember. And I really do. I remember you saying that.
Yeah.
And he's just he's an authentic guy. So, man, thank you so much, John. Love what you're doing and love that we kind of have that relationship. So we talked about your pleasantly surprised. Is there anything to add to that?
Well, yeah. So 2 other things. One would be Piranesi that I read this year, and it's a short book. It's less than 200 pages. It's spelled Anesi. And I learned how to pronounce it from Philip Chase, Piranesi. It's Italian. Now you'll watch all the other booktubers and they'll pronounce it wrong, and they have only themselves to blame for not watching The Best of Fantasy with Dr. Chase. But so that book is also atmospheric. It's really dreamy. I was really surprised by it. My camera go off?
Nope.
No, really? Okay.
Nope. Sometimes my desktop will sometimes go black sometimes, and it doesn't shut anything off.
Okay. Yeah, I think it might have switched over to my what do you call it? Just a regular laptop.
Yep, I can see you and hear you and everything.
Okay, good. Anyways, so what we were talking, Piranesi. So that book surprised me, but I had read, the author's name is Susanna Clark, and I had read her gigantic fantasy book. It's like a Victorian era fantasy book called Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I read that years ago.
I've heard of that.
It's a huge book. It's a commitment. I mean, you gotta say to yourself, all right, I'm gonna put a month into this. It's a big book. But I loved it. Her prose is, it's unbeatable. So when she came up with a 200-page book called Piranesi, I was really into reading it, and I was totally surprised. And like I mentioned in my last video, go in totally blind. Don't try to find out what it's about. Just, if you trust me, read the book. It's cool. You might not like it. If you don't, it's only 190 pages. Who cares?
So I have to mention real quick, one of the books that I absolutely have loved recently, and I got to grab it 1 second. Actually, I don't. I forgot the author's name. She's a wonderful woman. I forget everything. If you've watched my channel, if I'm on the spot, I forget things. But by J. Patricia Anderson, it's Your Blood and Bones. Oh my gosh, it's a novella. And it is the first thing that I've ever read that made me feel like my skin was crawling. It's really short. It's a novella. She's in that competition as Sphinx.
FBFAO.
Yeah. So she's a semifinalist, and I just had her on the show. Starting really what you were talking about earlier, how you read and then chat with them. She was one of the first where I put that into play, and I absolutely was pleasantly surprised by the experience I had. And I have to say, my wife is kind of a fantasy fan. It's really kind of like pick and choose, and she loved it. And
cool.
I hope, so I would say that's my pleasantly surprised of the year.
Awesome.
Yes. Another one, of course, we kind of talked about is the Christopher Rocchio. I didn't think I was a sci-fi person, and I'm coming to find out I'm not only into sci-fi, I really enjoy just the far out
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So
And hats off to you, because the Sun Eater series, I would not consider to be an entry level science fiction series by
yeah,
any stretch of any imagination. This is a guy who writes some pretty dense material. His words are sometimes I grab the dictionary,
yep,
uh, and I wouldn't call it entry level. So if
no,
you're in there and you like it, hats off to you. Like I said, you're smarter at 32, 33 than you were at 22. So now is the time for you to be reading this stuff.
absolutely. I love that point. And I recognize that in myself. And I'm glad that I'm kind of like leveling up, if you will. That's why I think I'm going to
Yeah,
be
you
so
are.
into that lit RPG experience.
You will.
Um,
You really will. I can tell.
so is there any other recs that you would give me maybe that are not modern?
That are not modern. Let's
Like not
see here.
current.
Well, I mean, I think I really think you're going to like Sandman Slim.
Mm,
Like I said, there's 12 books that are out. It's a completed series,
mm.
so you're not waiting on anything. Have you read the Dresden Files at all?
I have not.
Okay, so that would be another one. That's an ongoing series. It's a little bit more probably PG-ish, PG-13 rated compared to Sandman Slim being our borderline moving
Right.
that. But I think you could handle Sandman Slim. I'd start there. And you know how to get a hold of me real easy. So
For sure.
anytime you need book recommendations, you let me know.
I will.
But
Man,
I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be doing an entire video on urban fantasy, because for me, I think there's just a lot more crossover to epic fantasy fans than there are lit RPG. I talked about this the other day. Lit RPG, I think you're kind of into it or you're not. You might listen to one or two or read one or two, and it's probably all you're going to need. It just is what it is. So, some people like pineapple on their pizza, some people don't. I think it's kind of
absolutely.
like that. Yeah.
So, man, I just really want to thank you for this experience. I knew it was going to be an absolute blast, and you have been one of my favorite people on the channel,
Oh,
and
awesome, man.
that goes the same for the videos you make, man. I'm on your team. I'm part of the
Thank you.
BellTube community, and I
You
always
are,
will
man.
be.
You're an important part. Yeah, you're a key member. There's no doubt. And there are things that I would like to do from a business side of things with BellTube, that as the year goes by and as another year goes by, and hopefully people are enjoying what I'm putting out there, and hopefully I continue to enjoy making the videos. I think there's things that we can do that are pretty awesome, and I'm ready for it. We just have to take steps to get there. Sure.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, man. I just want to really thank you for letting me borrow you from your busy schedule.
Oh, it's
And,
my pleasure, man.
this definitely won't be the last time me and Brian get together. This is going to be something that
No,
I hope.
yeah, we're gonna do it all the time, man. I'm happy to come on. You're a great guy. Like I said, you're my favorite interviewer to watch, because you have raw enthusiasm that you can't fake it. That's who you are. You're excited to be doing what you're doing. Makes me happy to watch you. You'll never get a no from me when it comes to an invitation to be on your channel. So I don't care if my channel has 700 viewers. I don't care if it blows up and gets gigantic. You always have a seat at the table over here.
Man, that really means the world to me. So again, I would really like to thank you, Brian. Thank for you guys that were here live to watch this wonderful conversation. I totally enjoyed it. Thank you for all the wonderful comments, and for anybody that watches in the future, thank you so much. Like, share, subscribe. That helps the channel grow. I got to say the YouTube crap, right? And so my next interview tomorrow is, oh my goodness, Dirk. I can't remember it because, of course, I always blank out. Dirk Ashton, I believe his name is, and he's written for a while. He's a part of the community, man, and he's got some wonderful things to say. I can just tell. His books are wonderful. So I've got some really fun projects in the mix, and I just can't wait to come forward with them. Thank you again for everybody being here.
Yeah.
Everybody,
I didn't ignore the chat too much.
No,
I got so interested in your questions, and I've been waiting so long to have this conversation with you that if I've missed a ton of chat, I will send tons of apology letters out tomorrow. And yeah,
the thing is, the chat is like they do a wonderful job of doing questions, but they also do a wonderful job of keeping the context like between one another. So I feel like we grabbed the perfect comments and all that. So
cool.
Thank you guys. I hope you have a wonderful night, and we will see you next time.
Have a great night, everybody.